On the various mountain peaks, practitioners all looked around at others. The Donghua Academy practitioners had already tested themselves, so there was no need for them to go again. On the various mountain peaks, practitioners all looked around at others. The Donghua Academy practitioners had already tested themselves, so there was no need for them to go again. As for the other practitioners, it was their first time stepping into the Donghua Academy. It was a rare chance that they got to stand in front of the divine mirror of heavenly wheels and appraise their own divine wheels. Of the 3 main goddesses of the divine palace of fluttering snow, there are still 2 of you who possess a perfect great path. Certainly, the level of your divine wheels is not low. Would you be interested in trying? A voice echoed out. It was from a disciple of the Donghua Academy. The 3 direct disciples of the sword goddess of the divine palace of fluttering snow were all practitioners with a perfect great path. Apart from Jiang Yueli, who was at the high Renhuang level, there were also Qin Qing and Chu Hanqi at the middle Renhuang level. Rumor had it that they were extraordinary women favored by the gods. In the divine palace of fluttering snow, these 3 women were all potential heirs to the sword goddess. Even though Jiang Yueli was ahead, it did not mean that Qin Qing and Chu Hanqi were definitely inferior. Testing their divine wheels here was an excellent method. Emperor Yi from the Wangshan Watchtower has such overpowering combat abilities with a perfect divine wheel of the great path. Furthermore, he possesses multiple divine wheels. Surely the level of his divine wheels must be very high. Ling He said from Lingxiao Palace, looking at Yi Futian as he did so. His defeat from the last time was humiliating. In the future, wherever Yi Futian was, everyone would compare the 2 of them. He had 2 motives for getting Yi Futian to appraise his divine wheel. First, it was for him to see just how strong Yi Futian's divine wheel was, and what level it was at. Secondly, if Yi Futian were indeed that outstanding, someone would surely take him down. The great Yin ancient royal family was also present. They glanced at Yi Futian. Obviously they too wanted to know the level of Yi Futian's divine wheel of the great path. I am rather mediocre, so my divine will level should be rather normal too. With so many top-tier factions around, like the Desolate God Palace, Great Yin Ancient Royal Family, Lingxiao Palace, and the goddesses of the Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow, there are certainly people who possess a high-level divine wheel. As for me, I am not deserving of stepping onto this magnificent stage, Yi Futian said with a smile, appearing very humble. Behind his smile, however, his intent to slay Ling He did not waver. Emperor Yi, you really know how to joke. Whether it was the battle of the Wangshan Watchtower, or the battle at Turtle Deity Island, Emperor Yi was outstanding, Ling He said, trying his best to hide his chilly attitude. Yi Futian said he was not deserving enough. Wouldn't it be even more the case for him, as he was the one who had lost to Yi Futian? Those 2 battles? You couldn't really count them. Perhaps it might be because of my opponents, Yi Futian replied with a smile, causing Ling He and Yin Dongyang to both reveal a cold expression. Yi Futian had insulted them without holding back. When he said it was because of his opponents, he meant that it wasn't so much that he was outstanding, but rather because his opponents were too weak. Yi Futian meant that Ling He and Yin Dongyang were nothing. I'll go try. At this moment, a soft and gentle voice sounded out. Qin Qing took the initiative to walk up to face the divine mirror of heavenly wheels. It was only then that the argument was quelled. Qin Qing's divine wheel of the great path was unique. It was actually a mirror. Although it was strange when another mirror appeared in the divine mirror of heavenly wheels, the layers of divine light in the divine mirror continued to flow. Qin Qing's divine wheel of the great path was appraised. It was at the 4th level. To be able to attain the 4th level was already very outstanding. Even though she was a little behind Jiang Yueli, Desolation, and Zhong Chan, it was very rare for someone in Donghua Academy to attain such a level. Apart from Ning Hua, who was able to cause 6 layers of divine light to appear in the divine mirror, no one could cause 5 layers to appear like Jiang Yueli and the rest. Hence, there was a chasm in levels. Of course, the level of the divine wheel of the great path could be raised as one's cultivation level was raised. Even though these cases were extremely rare, and the final quality might not rise with an increase in level, it was still possible. Many practitioners continuously tried to perfect their own divine wheels of the Great Path, causing them to be more powerful. After Qin Qing, Chu Hanqi also walked out. Like Qin Qing, 4 layers of divine light appeared in the divine mirror. You are indeed the 3 disciples of the fluttering snow sword goddess. The 3 goddesses indeed have astonishing talent, Lu Qingzhu said. Many people nodded their heads in agreement. A level 5 and 2 level 4 divine wheels. Talents of this level were indeed astonishing. The divine palace of fluttering snow was ranked among the top 3 factions in the Donghua domain. The sword goddess was also honorably ranked among the top 3 powerful virtuosos. Now it seemed like her 3 disciples were going to inherit everything from her. Let me try. At that moment, another silhouette walked out. This time, the practitioner who walked out was the prince of the great Yin ancient royal family, Yin Dongyang. He had a perfect great path, and thus wanted to test the level of his great path divine wheel. Yin Dongyang walked to the front of the divine mirror, and a shocking dragon's roar echoed out. A sacred giant golden dragon orbited him. A divine dragon appeared in the divine mirror. Very quickly, Yin Dongyang saw the result. 3 layers of divine light glowed. He waited, seemingly with a tinge of refusal to accept the results. Yet, the 4th layer of divine light did not appear. This meant that his divine wheel was inferior to those of Qin Qing and Chu Hanqi. A while later, Yin Dongyang finally accepted the reality. He turned around and silently returned to the mountain peak, where the great Yin ancient royal family was located. Are you not planning to give it a try? On the mountain peak where the practitioners of Wangshan Watchtower stood, Li Changxing asked Yi Futian in a low voice. He smiled at him. Yi Futian seemed to be a little hesitant. A few people had already given it a try. He felt that Desolation, Jiang Yueli, and Zhong Chan had very powerful divine wheels of the Great Path. Among everyone, he should have the greatest number of divine wheels. Since he had many life spirits, he could forge many divine wheels of the Great Path. However, when it came to the level of his divine wheels, he didn't think they would be that high. From his perspective, apart from the divine wheel forged from the world tree, all others were forged from life spirits that only appeared later on. Desolation, Jiang Yueli, and people like them were not ordinary people. Zhong Chan forged his divine wheel in the heavenly treasure in Wangshan Watchtower, so it was certainly powerful too. Thus, Yi Futian already had a rough estimate of the levels of his divine wheel. Does the sole heir to the Eastern Deity Island with a perfect great path not want to try it? A voice echoed. It came from a virtuoso from the great Yin ancient royal family. They still remembered that Yi Futian was the heir to the Eastern Deity Island. Yi Futian represented Eastern Deity Island. Yi Futian raised his head to look at the other party. Behind him, the Donglai goddess had a tinge of coldness in her eyes. It seemed like the great Yin ancient royal family was reminding Yi Futian that they would not just let him off like that. All right, Yi Futian nodded. Since everyone seems to be even more curious than I am, I will give it a try. As he spoke, he stepped forward. His body descended to the path-seeking stage to face the divine mirror of heavenly wheels between the 2 peaks. Emperor Yi, you have so many divine wheels. Which one are you planning to test? The virtuoso of the great Yin ancient royal family continued to ask. Which one do you want to see? Yi Futian asked in reply. Why don't you test all? The virtuoso said. Yi Futian did not reply. Qin Qing and the practitioners of the divine palace of fluttering snow paid a little more attention to Yi Futian. They noticed that he was not simple. He had proven himself in the 2 battles that made his name renowned. Yet, among these top-tier factions, he was still discriminated against. This test of divine wheels done by the Donghua Academy could further validate Yi Futian's talent and potential, and how far he could go in the future. Would he become the next Zhong Chan of Wangshan Watchtower? A brilliant golden light glimmered on Yi Futian's body. The ethereal form of a divine elephant seemed to materialize. The golden divine elephant was incomparably large. In an instant, a change occurred in the divine mirror of heavenly wheels. The shadow of a divine elephant appeared in the divine mirror. At the same time, divine light locked onto Yi Futian's body, and a rather mysterious connection was formed. At that moment, Yi Futian felt that this divine mirror of heavenly wheels was extraordinary. It seemed to be able to evolve all forms of power of the Great Path. Very quickly, layers of divine light started to revolve. In an instant, 3 layers of divine light were revolving around him. Many people focused on it. In a little while, the 4th layer of divine light appeared. Like the virtuosos of the great Yin ancient royal family, and Ling He, and the virtuosos from the Lingxiao Palace, many people had a more serious look in their eyes. It was not easy to attain the 4th level. Qin Qing and Chu Hanqi were all on this level. It's not stopping yet, someone said in a low voice. The practitioners of Donghua Academy were staring intently in that direction. Another layer of divine light appeared once again, revolving around the divine elephant. With the appearance of 5 layers of divine light, the mountain peaks all around turned dead silent. 5 layers. This was the same level as Desolation, Jiangyueli and Zhongchan. Furthermore, he was only a middle-level Renhuang. He had yet to witness the path to a high-level Renhuang with a perfect great path. Didn't this mean that he was another Zhongchan? In the future, he would certainly reach the same heights as Desolation and people like him. Ling He's eyes turned a little sharp, and the murderous intent harbored by the virtuosos of the great Yin ancient royal family intensified greatly. Jiang Yueli was also a little surprised. Looking closely at Yi Futian's back, she realized that this man had great potential. Was Wangshan Watchtower going to rise? After the 5th layer of divine light appeared, it finally stopped. Seeing this unfold before him, Yi Futian did not feel too surprised. It was as though everything was within his expectations. This divine will was forged with his secondary life spirit, so of course, its level would not be that high. For it to attain the same level as Desolation's, Jiangyueli's, and the others was already complicated. Then the other few divine wheels that he had should all be of the same level. He did not know the level of the moon will he forged later on, or that of the divine will forged by his natal spirit. Would they cause 6 layers of divine light to appear in the divine mirror of heavenly wheels? Or perhaps even more? No matter the limit of this divine mirror of heavenly wheels, he felt that this divine mirror of heavenly wheels was also a precious treasure, an extraordinary item indeed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2021, Unrivaled Divine Wheel. Chapter 2021. Unrivaled Divine Wheel. On the path-seeking peak, all the practitioners turned to Yi Futian. Having witnessed the level of his divine wheel, they seemed to understand how he had been able to defeat Ling He and Yin Dongyang, who were levels of cultivation higher than him. With a divine wheel of a superior level, his power of the great path would certainly increase. Isn't Emperor Yi also very skilled with swords? Someone asked, seemingly very interested in seeing Yi Futian's other divine wheels. Previously, when Yi Futian defeated Ling He and Yin Dongyang, he used his extraordinarily powerful swordplay on both occasions. Yi Futian did not reply, but a wisp of his will of the sword wafted from his body. In the surrounding space, countless harp strings of the way of the sword appeared. In the divine mirror of heavenly wheels was an endless stream of the will of the sword. Yet they morphed into the form of a zither. It was as though sword and zither were fused into one, and they were 2 parts of a whole. Layers of divine light radiated, and like the divine elephant divine wheel, 5 layers of divine light flowed around in no time at all. Everyone set their eyes in that direction. As expected, it was another 5 layers of divine light. With every divine will having 5 layers of divine light, wasn't he stronger than even Desolation? Desolation's first divine wheel, the ancient tree divine wheel, could only cause 3 layers of divine light to be emitted. Yet Yi Futian's every divine wheel had 5 layers of divine light. He had already surpassed Desolation. This also meant that he had an advantage over even Desolation, Jiangyueli, and Zhongchan when it came to divine wheels. He was only below Ninghua. In that case, would Yi Futian's future achievements be even greater than Desolation and the rest? This was naturally an unknown variable. Yet, no one could refute the fact that this was a very definite possibility. Where the practitioners of the divine palace of fluttering snow stood, many goddesses looked toward Jiangyueli. The three main goddesses of the divine palace of fluttering snow had all been surpassed by another in terms of divine will levels. This was in no way expected, and Jiang Yueli herself stared at where Yi Futian was. She had witnessed the battle between Yi Futian and Ling He. Apart from these two types of powers, Yi Futian was also well versed in other forms of power of the Great Path. She felt that there were still other divine wheels that he had yet to appraise. However, at that moment, she saw that Yi Futian withdrew the aura he had emitted, seemingly with no intention to continue. Obviously, he did not want to continue testing his divine wheels. This made Jiang Yueli feel that Yi Futian was concealing something, and that he did not want to shock the world too much. Could it be that the divine wheel that he was hiding could match up to Ninghua's? Furthermore, his two divine wheels were both at the 5th level, yet she saw that Yi Futian's expression was very calm. He was neither joyous nor disappointed. It was as though he did something perfectly ordinary. It seemed like it was completely within his expectations, and that nothing was extraordinary. This also made her feel that Yi Futian knew how strong his divine wheels were. Is Emperor Yi not going to continue? A virtuoso from the great Yin ancient royal family said. Emperor Yi should still have one more divine wheel of the Great Path, right? Yi Futian glanced at the person who spoke. He indeed had more divine wheels of the Great Path, but there were more than one. Of course, he would definitely not tell him this. There was no need for him to expose all his divine wheels in a situation like this. Thus, he did not bother answering him. Anyway, that person certainly did not have good intentions, asking him to expose his divine wheels like that. It seems like Emperor Yi has the most powerful divine wheels today. This is quite a surprise, Lu Qingzhu said. It was not just him, but all the practitioners of the Donghua Academy were also quite surprised. They thought it would be either Desolation, Jiang Yueli and Zhong Chan. They thought that no one would be able to surpass the three of them. Yet, Yi Futian managed to accomplish that. It seemed that now, apart from the greatest figures in the Donghua domain and Ninghua, Yi Futian's divine will was the strongest. This practitioner from the Eastern Deity Island was indeed not simple. Brother Yi is extraordinary with his unrivaled divine wheels of the Great Path. With so many influential figures gathered here, does no one want to experience Brother Ye's Great Path? Ling He asked. Hearing his words, many people were indeed poised to act, their bodies emitting faint auras. Yi Futian's divine wheels of the Great Path completely overshadowed all the Renhuangs present today, and were unrivaled. Naturally, the people from the various factions all had some thoughts about this. Even the practitioners from the Desolate God Palace looked at Yi Futian with astonishment. Desolation from the Desolate God Palace also stared at Yi Futian's silhouette intently. Of course, he would not challenge Yi Futian with his cultivation level and status, though he might challenge Jiang Yueli or Zhong Chan. That was unless Yi Futian also stepped into the high Renhuang level. Our battle that day at the Turtle Deity Island was not finished. Do you want to battle again? I don't mind. Yi Futian raised his head and glanced at Ling He with a sharp expression that carried some menace and condescension. Those eyes made Ling He extremely uncomfortable, and he was tempted to fight again. However, he suffered such a pathetic the last time. In the end, the virtuosos from Lingxiao Palace had to interfere to stop Yi Futian. If they exchanged blows again today, was he going to lose again? In that case, how was he still going to maintain his dignity? After all, he was also a practitioner of the Donghua Academy. Ling He did not reply immediately, so Yi Futian kept staring at him, causing everyone to look at Ling He as though they were waiting for his reply. Feeling extremely awkward, he said, "The result of the fight at the Turtle Deity Island was already decided. There is no need for another battle." Yi Futian looked at him with a sarcastic expression. At that moment, a practitioner walked out from a place not far from where Ling He was standing. He looked similarly very young. His cultivation level was also similar to Ling He's, and he had an extraordinary air about him. His appearance caused many practitioners from the Donghua Academy to let out a surprised expression. Lung Qinghan, who had previously brought Yi Futian over, also let out an expression of surprise. Sky Sword Lung Guangsheng and Li Changsheng were together, and they also recognized this person. He was an extremely famous person in the Donghua Academy, whose strength was beyond Ling He's. Be careful. This person is Kong Xiao. He is a junior of a mighty figure in the Donghua heavens. It is said that he possesses the blood of the peacock demon god. He is an extremely powerful figure in Donghua Academy. His combat abilities are above Ling He's. Lung Guangxing communicated telepathically with Yi Futian. Yi Futian looked up at the person who walked out. That person floated in front of the ancient peaks, and then entered the region of influence of the matrices. Standing in the space above the path-seeking stage, he looked at Yi Futian and said, I am Kong Xiao, a disciple of the Donghua Academy. I am at the 5th level. I have long since heard that Emperor Yi has extraordinary combat abilities. Today, in front of the divine mirror of heavenly wheels, you have shown us that your divine wheels also has one of the highest levels. I want to experience Emperor Yi's path. Seeing that Kong Xiao had stepped up to challenge Yi Futian, the practitioners of Donghua Academy all took on a more serious look. In terms of talent, Kong Xiao would definitely be ranked within the top 5 among all the disciples of Donghua Academy. He had also tested his Great Path Divine Will before. It was at the 4th level. Furthermore, many seniors of Donghua Academy believed that Kong Xiao's Divine Will could evolve to the 5th level to become even stronger, and that he had a chance to follow in Ning Hua's footsteps to become the next prodigy, where he would step into the high-level Runhuang realm with a perfect great path. When Kong Xiao walked out to challenge Yi Futian, everyone's attention was drawn to them. Hearing his words, Yi Futian looked back at where the rest of the Wangshan Watchtower people were. Li Changxing nodded and said, Donghua Academy is the top sacred ground in the Donghua domain. There are so many virtuosos and talents here, as well as very famous figures. This is a very rare learning opportunity. Leonian, since you have this chance, why don't you learn from each other? All right. Yi Futian nodded. Looking up at Kong Xiao's silhouette in the air, he said, Please guide me. Please, Kong Xiao replied. As the words left his lips, wisps of green divine light appeared between heaven and earth, causing the entire space to be colored. The flowing divine light gathered in Kong Xiao's body, causing his body to glow like a divine body. Be careful. Kong Xiao possesses extreme strength and speed, and he is also well versed in illusions, Lung Guangxing reminded, seemingly worried for Yi Futian. The green divine light shrouded the vast area, and the space seemed to be distorted. Oin. Accompanying a streak of green divine light, Kong Xiao's body vanished without a trace. Yi Futian lifted his hands and unleashed a punch. Golden divine light glowed, and the low trumpet of a divine elephant reverberated. The divine elephant cracked the space, and his great path seemed to destroy everything. Crash! A shocking sound echoed out. The space seemed to split apart. Yi Futian was knocked back, and that swift green divine light shot towards him again like lightning. From his punch just now, Yi Futian felt an incomparably destructive power. Yi Futian stepped into the air hastily and steadied himself. The divine elephant revolved around him, and the surroundings echoed with the sound of the great path. He gathered an overpowering strength, and even his eyes turned a little demonic. He managed to capture those green tracks. With insane speed, he unleashed another punch. It was another intense collision. The green divine light circulated between heaven and earth, encapsulating the entire space. The space distorted under the green divine light. Kong Xiao's body seemed to fuse into the green light. His continuous attacks made his surroundings look like his silhouette was everywhere. The crowd could only see that the two of them collided uncountable times in a split second. They were too fast for them to follow. Yi Futian was continuously knocked down. Accompanying a radiant green light that pierced through space, another loud sound of collision echoed out. Yi Futian's body landed on the path-seeking stage with a dull thud. Both sides stopped their attacks. Yi Futian raised his head to look at the air above, and saw that Kong Xiao levitated in the air. The space around them had morphed into a green-colored world. Divine light circulated, and Kong Xiao seemed to stand on something illusionary. However, his every attack could shatter a human. The continuous collision from before had caused Yi Futian's arms to become a little numb. That power rushed into his arm, wanting to destroy his arm, his body, and his path. Kong Xiao's attacks are indeed extraordinary, praised the practitioners from the Donghua Academy upon seeing the scene before them. If it were any other person of the same level, they wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow from Kong Xiao. This person's level is not as high as Kong Xiao's, yet he still was unharmed. He is powerful. Someone else also praised. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2022, Admiration. Chapter 2022, Admiration. It was obvious that the two of them were strong enough to be recognized by everyone. Kong Xiao was one of the top-tier figures in the Donghua Academy, with terrifying combat ability. Even though he had an advantage over Yi Futian, in terms of his cultivation level, Yi Futian's divine wheel was superior. In the space above, Kong Xiao lowered his head and looked down at Yi Futian. Green light circled in the space around them, revolving around him. Wherever the green light was, the space seemed to shatter. This was his will of the Great Path. An even more brilliant green light revolved around Kong Xiao's body. Seeing this, Yi Futian's arms hammered down at the sides of his body. In an instant, a heaven-reaching will of the sword was unleashed. It seemed to pervade the entire space. Ear-piercing echoes of the sword rang out over and over again. A limitless will of the sword created an intense resonance. With Yi Futian's body at its center, a fearsome storm of will of the sword appeared, and it collided with the green divine light in the space above. Oin! Tens of thousands of divine swords shot murderously towards Kong Xiao. The green light surrounding Kong Xiao revolved around terrifyingly. Colliding with the sharp swords, they actually destroyed them all. Around Yi Futian, billions of divine swords appeared and pointed straight at the heavens. The path of the sword flowed upward, as though it were a river of swords that rushed straight towards Kong Xiao. At that moment, Kong Xiao stepped downward. In just the time it took him to make that one step, a straight green divine light appeared between the two of them in an instant. Yet at the moment that he moved, Yi Futian also acted. The billions of divine swords shot upward and crashed straight into the green divine light. The endless green flow was continuously destroyed, and the great path was shattered. The impossibly radiant green light was also blocked. In the next instant it shattered into pieces, but Yi Futian's sword also broke. A silhouette retreated into the air. It was Kong Xiao. What swordplay is that? Kong Xiao asked Yi Futian. He knew how strong his attack was. Yet he was forced to retreat in a single sword strike that blocked his attack. Lionian, Yi Futian replied. Many people let out a surprised expression. This person was named Lionian, and this sword technique was named after him. It was very uncommon. All the practitioners could feel that when he unleashed that sword strike, the power of the Great Path was forced to reverse in direction, and everything seemed to be destroyed. It's really not bad, Kong Xiao praised. He levitated in the air, his expression still unwavering, as though he still had immense confidence in defeating Yi Futian. Even if the person in front of him was an extraordinary figure, wasn't he the same too? The two of them had a perfect Great Path. With the advantage of a higher cultivation level, he had no reason to lose. Oin! An infinitely bright divine light radiated outwards in an instant. The piercing light shot through empty space, and many people instinctively stretched their hands out to shield their eyes. It was too blinding. They only moved their arms away after a moment and looked at Kong Xiao. Behind him, an incomparably bright, giant silhouette appeared. That was the silhouette of a vivid and sacred peacock. When it fanned out its wings, it shaded the sun, directly covering the sky. On its wings, countless eyes seemed to appear, and they shot out a blinding divine light. Yi Futian also seemed to be stunned for a moment. In the next moment, he saw that the skies were filled with eyes. His vision seemed to be blurred, and it was the same even if he unleashed his divine consciousness. The countless eyes seemed to contain a terrifying magical power that drew him into an illusion. He saw the silhouettes of many Kong Xiao. It was like there was a Kong Xiao in front of every eye. Illusions! A voice echoed out in Yi Futian's heart. In the next moment, the countless pairs of eyes emitted a terrifying divine light. They were like sharp, green swords that pierced towards him. At that moment, Yi Futian vaguely understood why Sky Sword Lung Quangxing reminded him twice to be wary of this person. This Kong Xiao was indeed more dangerous than Ling He. The current him was already trapped in his opponent's domain of the Great Path. The moment the Peacock Divine Wheel of the Great Path appeared, Kong Xiao seemed to gain absolute control over this region. He is in danger, many practitioners who watched from the mountain peaks thought to themselves. This Kong Xiao was extremely dangerous. As for the practitioners of the Donghua Academy, they understood Kong Xiao's abilities, so they were not too surprised. It would be challenging for Yi Futian to obtain victory from Kong Xiao. At that moment, when the limitless green divine light shot murderously towards Yi Futian, everyone saw that a circular moon appeared above Yi Futian. This moon appeared to be especially cold. The moon radiated moonlight, and snow seemed to flutter all around. The beams of divine moonlight shone into the area, covering the entire region, colliding directly with the streaks of green light. The crowd shockingly found out that under the radiation of moonlight, the green divine light, that contained a dominating power of the Great Path, seemed to be shattered directly. The green light and moonlight annihilated each other into nothingness. This, many virtuosos showed a shocked expression. This was yet another divine wheel. Previously, Yi Futian had never displayed this divine wheel of the Great Path, the divine wheel of the moon. Furthermore, this seemed to be even stronger than his previous divine wheel. Just the moonlight that was lightly showered could block the green divine light straight on. The two of them seemed to be battling with their divine wheels. It was still the same, Kong Xiao with the cultivation level advantage, and Yi Futian with the divine wheel level advantage. Just by relying on the strength of his divine wheel, Yi Futian instantly wiped away the cultivation level advantage that his opponent possessed over him. He could block his opponent's attack straight on. Previously, his two divine wheels had already managed to get the divine mirror of heavenly wheels to emit 5 layers of divine light. However, he did not unleash this divine wheel. If unleashing this moon wheel can surpass the 5 layers of divine light, he would have reached the top level of the Donghua Academy, 6 layers. Thought some practitioners from the Donghua Academy. As for Jiang Yueli and Qin Qing, they recalled the battle between Yi Futian and Ling He. That cold will was probably emanated from this divine wheel. Moreover, Yi Futian purposely concealed his divine wheel and did not test its level. Why? Was he worried that his moon wheel would beat the Academy record? Indeed, many practitioners present, such as the Great Yin ancient royal family and Ling Xiao Palace, were not friendly towards him. She could understand if Yi Futian did not want to stand out too much. Desolation, Zhongchan, and Li Changxing each had some thoughts as they continued to stare at the battle. It seemed to be getting more interesting. In the air above, the green light that shot out collided with the moonlight that Yi Futian shot out. Each annihilated another, and a sort of balance seemed to be formed. Neither of them could break through the power of the Great Path of the other. However, Kong Xiao was indeed the most powerful opponent that Yi Futian had encountered thus far. Both Ling He and Yin Dongyang were inferior to him. Only Kong Xiao, right in the middle of the battlefield, knew that the cold aura emitted by the moon wheel was eroding the entire Great Path domain. He could already feel a freezing will. It was as though there was a formless power permeating the entire space, trying to wrestle control over this domain. On the feathers of the divine peacock, the countless pairs of eyes lit up simultaneously, shooting out beams of divine light. They gathered in front of Kong Xiao's body. In that instant, Kong Xiao seemed to become a god. He looked majestic. The moment he moved his hands together, the endless green divine light gathered in his 2 fists, morphing into a green divine sword. The next moment he moved. Yi Futian, however, saw something entirely different. He saw an infinite pair of eyes shooting beams of light at him. Countless of Kong Xiao's silhouettes walked towards him at the same time. It was because they were all illusions that he unleashed his moon wheel and continuously take his opponent's attacks. Despite doing that, Yi Futian suddenly felt an extremely strong sense of danger. His eyes became very demonic. His pair of eyes seemed to want to see through all illusions and resist his opponent's illusionary powers of the Great Path. He could vaguely make out a streak of green light. At that moment, Yi Futian's eyes also changed. They turned divine-like. Two beams of light shot out from his eyes. The Kong Xiao who was charging at him suddenly realized that he himself was sinking into an illusion. It was as though he had entered a world in the space created by isorcery. In front of him, an endlessly overlapping space trapped him. It was an ability similar to his. However, Kong Xiao did not hesitate. Absolute power could shatter everything. The divine wings of the peacock flapped, and countless divine feathers morphed into straight, sharp swords. An impossibly brilliant green divine light pierced through the space with great force. Layers upon layers of space were pierced straight through and shattered. Absolute power was sufficient to break any domain of the Great Path. At that moment, Kong Xiao understood what it meant to be so close yet so far. Nonetheless, the green light continued to flash, and wherever it passed, everything was pulverized into nothingness. Boom! Kong Xiao sensed that he had finally escaped the world of isorcery. The impossibly radiant green divine sword pierced through everything and entered the region shrouded in the moonlight. An extremely cold aura descended, along with a power that penetrated his soul and froze the space around him. A sharp whistle echoed out as the divine sword pierced through the air. Kong Xiao had never found it so difficult to execute his killing technique. This was definitely the first time in history. Even when facing off against virtuosos with higher cultivation level than him, his attack was still as smooth as cutting through water. He had never encountered a situation like today. He thought he had already broken out of the world of isorcery. Yet it seemed like he had entered another domain of the Great Path. In the space of this absolute domain, he saw the orbitals of planets and the moon floating in space. This seemed to be a starry dimension. Countless planets orbited, and the trumpet of divine elephants echoed. Moonlight showered upon him, carrying with it an icy aura. His sword might be able to cut through the starry dimension, shattering planet after planet, but it seemed like he would forever not be able to reach the end. The Great Path domain he entered was Yi Futian's most powerful divine wheel, the absolute Great Path domain. An impossibly large palm charged towards the green divine sword murderously. In the starry dimension, countless stone steels carved with relics hammered down in suppression along with the palm. The celestial bodies and divine elephant also followed. A bright Buddhist glow suppressed his body and divine soul. Gate to world suppression, thought Kong Xiao. Yet this did not look like the gate to world suppression. The green divine sword shattered the space, the celestial bodies and the stone steels. However, it reached its limit. With the loud sound of an explosion, everything seemed to return to peace. Kong Xiao's body returned to where he was, and his body trembled violently. It was as though he had never moved, and had never experienced that terrifying battle. Nonetheless, the blood flowing from the tips of his mouth, and the shuddering of his body was sufficient proof of how immensely powerful that blow was. Kong Xiao looked down at Yi Futian with a complicated expression. Then he bowed slightly and said, "In the future, when he ascends to the top, I will admire anyone from the Donghua domain who challenges him." With that, he turned around and stepped away. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2023, Rise to Fame. Chapter 2023, Rise to Fame. Kong Xiao left before other people could come to their senses. All they saw was his receding figure. There was no doubt that Kong Xiao lost this fight. Not only did he lose, but he was also completely won over. People could interpret his last words in many different ways. Who in Donghua could compete with him when he reached his ultimate height? By high, did he mean a super powerful master cultivator, or to become a high-level Renhuang? And was he referring to the Donghua Academy, or the entire Donghua domain? No one could know for sure. But it was safe to assume that a high-level Renhuang would be the best of the Donghua Academy, and that a powerful master cultivator would dominate the Donghua domain. Either way, it was high praise. Apparently, Kong Xiao had been holding Yi Futian in high regard because of the fight. He believed that hardly anyone could be a match for Yi Futian in the Donghua Academy, or even the Donghua domain. The crowd wouldn't be so impressed if a random person sang Yi Futian's praises. But Kong Xiao was a top-ranking cultivator of the Donghua Academy, and a high-level Run Huang in the fifth order, with a perfect divine will who would certainly become an overlord in the future. So many people at present already admired him. Since such a person commented on Yi Futian after fighting against him, people had to take him seriously and took another look at Yi Futian. Although they watched the fight from start to finish, they definitely didn't catch every single detail as Kong Xiao had. After all the attacks were targeting Kong Xiao, and he was the one who faced the Great Path domain. No one had a more vivid experience than Kong Xiao. The difficulty with the last strike, in particular, could never be understood by an outsider. No one could deny Kong Xiao's strength. His last strike was especially earth-shattering. The blue divine light could attack enemies who were thousands of miles away instantly, yet it was obstructed and reduced in such a short distance. Kong Xiao bore too many kinds of power at that moment, including the elemental power of the Great Path domain, and the attack itself. After that strike, Kong Xiao realized that Yi Futian was a genius who had more than one divine wheel of the Great Path. Talented cultivators might cultivate multiple types of divine wheels of the Great Path, but not every one of them could be as strong. Besides, the divine wheel of the Great Path itself could be placed on different levels. Cultivators usually would choose to focus on the stronger one. Yi Futian had priorities as well, of course. Even so, Yi Futian's weakest divine wheel of the Great Path was at the 5th level, and made the divine mirror of heavenly wheels emit 5 wheels of divine light. He displayed more and more stunning strength, as if it was inexhaustible. That was what made Kong Xiao feel afraid. From what he could see, it was definitely at the 6th order level, no less than Ninghua. Moreover, Yi Futian was only a Run Huang at the 4th order. How powerful could he be in the future? That was why Kong Xiao dropped that line and left entirely convinced. It was in no way an easy thing to make a man like Kong Xiao bow his head. The crowd stared at Yi Futian with different thoughts running in their minds. But one thing they all understood was that Yi Futian's talents and innate abilities were much higher than the majority of the genius cultivators. He was one of the best and could compete against Desolation, Jiang Yueli, and Zhongchan. Kong Xiao even thought that he could be in the same league as Ninghua. They never thought that such an extraordinary person would be nameless in the past. This cultivator from the Eastern Deity Islands suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Ling He and the great Yin ancient royal family cultivators all stared at Yi Futian with a fierce look. They couldn't tolerate Yi Futian any longer. He is courting death, Yen Hanxing of the great Yin ancient royal family thought to himself. He glared at Yi Futian, as if he was a dead man walking. He might give Yi Futian a chance to live if he was a less capable cultivator, and didn't show off his remarkable talents. And now, the more outstanding Yi Futian seemed to be, the closer he was to his demise. Ling He would never allow him to live. Even Desolation in the desolate God Palace was looking at Yi Futian more seriously now. While they were marching to the top of the world, marvelous youngsters were following closely behind. They should wait and see who would dominate the Donghua domain in the future. Ninghua. What level was he? Jiang Yueli was also turning it over in her mind. It seemed that her speculation was right. Yi Futian didn't display his full strength during his fight with Ling He. He was obviously more powerful when fighting against Kong Xiao today, as though his strength could grow to meet his opponent. Then where was his limit? She darted a glance at the Wangshan watchtower where Li Changxing and Zhongchan were. They were even more formidable now that Yi Futian had joined them. Nevertheless, the great Yin ancient royal family probably wouldn't let Yi Futian off so easily. After all, everyone in the Donghua domain knew about their feud with the Eastern Deity Island. Run Huangyi showed off another divine wheel of the Great Path during this battle. It might surpass 5 wheels of divine light if tested before the divine mirror of heavenly wheels. Why don't you have a try? A voice said. It was Ling He from the Lingxiao Palace. It seemed that he had attempted multiple times to ask Yi Futian to reveal his ability. People who were not in the know thought that Ling He was genuinely impressed by Yi Futian. Qin Qing shot a glance at Ling He. She was a little surprised. Even though she already learned that Ling He was only trying to ruin Yi Futian by lauding him to the skies when they were at Turtle Deity Island before, she didn't believe that Ling He had to do it so conspicuously. It was beneath him. After all, He was the young master of the Lingxiao Palace rather than ordinary folk. He didn't have to behave like this. So why on earth did he do it? Was it simply because he hated Yi Futian and wanted to heap excessive praises on him, to instigate the great Yin ancient royal family to take on Yi Futian? Yi Futian detested Ling He and looked away after a glance. Then he turned to Donghua Academy's cultivators and said, Donghua Academy is indeed the best holy land for cultivation. I only won by chance. Brother Kong is an extraordinary man. His blue divine light is enough to smash the sky. I would have lost if I didn't do my best. I learned a lot from this match. Thank you very much. Even though Yi Futian won the fight, his humble words saved the face of the Donghua Academy. Besides, Kong Xiao was indeed a remarkable fighter, and it was not easy to defeat him. Any other person might be lost under the divine eyes of Peacock. The blue divine light contained destructive will might, and could kill Yi Futian with one strike. Yi Futian exerted quite some strength to obstruct it, and win against Kong Xiao. Ren Huangyi, you're too modest. Kong Xiao is at an advantage in terms of cultivation level. It seems that no one at your cultivation level from the Donghua Academy could be a match for you, Lu Qingzhu said with a smile. Since Kong Xiao had lost, Donghua Academy had no intention to continue the path seeking. It would be inappropriate for them to send out Renhuangs, who were beyond the sixth order. Yi Futian bowed slightly and returned to Wangshan Watchtower at the ancient peak. We learned a great deal from our visit to the Donghua Academy this time. Thank you very much for hosting us. Li Changsheng bowed in the direction of the cultivators of Donghua Academy and said, We won't bother you any longer. Goodbye. After all, this was the territory of the Donghua Academy. Even though it had secret zones for cultivation, Li Changsheng and his people couldn't get there. Yi Futian was forced to reveal his ability at the path-seeking peak. They should take their leave sooner than later. All right. Lu Qingzhu didn't object. He nodded and said, We wish you a good trip in the Donghua heavens. Qinghan, send them out. Yes. Lung Qinghan nodded and led Yi Futian and the others out. She was the one who brought them to the academy. After watching everything that had happened since then, she was deeply shocked and rattled. She would never expect Yi Futian to be so powerful that he defeated even Kong Xiao. It looked like Lung Yin was right after all. She underestimated Yi Futian's ability. On the other side of the ancient peak, the cultivators from the divine palace of fluttering snow also bid goodbye. The crowd dispersed after that, and people left the Donghua Academy one after another. While walking, Yi Futian heard a voice from behind. Ren Huangyi, please wait for a moment. Yi Futian turned around and saw Jiang Yueli. He said, What can I do for you? Nothing. I'm just curious, and would like to ask you what kind of power of the great path the moon will contains, said Jiang Yueli. She was at a similar level as Yi Futian, yet she could sense that Yi Futian had a superior path. Even though she had never experienced it directly, she had a vague suspicion. The power of Yin, Yi Futian replied. He assumed that many people had recognized it. Thank you. Jiang Yueli nodded. It was what she expected. You're welcome, said Yi Futian. Ren Huangyi, you mastered the power of Yin, learned alchemy from Eastern Deity Island, and were instructed by the Millet Emperor. Adding to your cultivation effort, you must have a boundless future ahead of you. The Donghua domain will have another master cultivator, said Jiang Yueli. Donghua domain? Yi Futian thought to himself. He needed to get in the domain chief's manners first. Only then could he be counted as a cultivator of the Donghua domain. They parted ways after that. Yi Futian and the others returned to the Lung family, while more and more cultivators arrived at the Donghua heavens. The incidents that happened in Donghua Academy spread quickly. The name Yi Liunian was on everyone's lips. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2024, Donghua Banquet. Chapter 2024, Donghua Banquet. Yi Liunian, also known as the Sword Emperor Liunian, was a disciple of the Eastern Deity Island. He followed the goddess Donglai to cultivate in Wangshan Watchtower, and had single-handedly thwarted the attack by cultivators of the Great Yin ancient royal family, and defeated Yin Dongyang, the prince of the Great Yin. While Emperor Shi was proving his path, Yi Liunian fought against Ling He of the Ling Shao Palace at the Turtle Deity Island, and won a resounding victory. And now, the Donghua Academy invited cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower over to spar. Yi Futian demonstrated his talent again, when 3 esteemed cultivators, Desolation, Jiang Yueli and Zhong Chan, assessed their divine wheels in front of the divine mirror of heavenly wheels. The mirror emitted 5 wheels of divine light. Both of Yi Futian's divine wheels managed to make the mirror release 5 wheels of divine light, which put him in the same league as the 3 illustrious cultivators. After that, he sparred with Kong Xiao, the genius cultivator of the Donghua Academy. Not only did he defeat Kong Xiao, but he also revealed a divine wheel of the Great Path that seemed to be even stronger than the ones he tested in front of the divine mirror of heavenly wheels. He might be comparable to the best cultivator in the Donghua heavens, Ning Hua, who could make the divine mirror of heavenly wheels emit 6 wheels of divine light, yet didn't participate in the previous assessment session. Moreover, all of this news came from the Donghua Academy and were confirmed to be true. An unparalleled genius popped out of nowhere and came to the Donghua heavens, all the way from the Eastern Deity Island. Many people claimed that the Sword Emperor Liunian might come to enter the domain chief's manor. If that was the case, there was no doubt that he would achieve his goal in light of his talent and ability. If he successfully entered the domain chief's manor, the Great Yin ancient royal family wouldn't be able to deal with him anymore. By that time, he would directly threaten the Great Yin ancient royal family, and might even take revenge for the supreme deity Donglai if he took control. In a word, Yi Futian rose to fame after his trip to Donghua Academy. Countless people were talking about another powerful genius from the Wangshan Watchtower after Zhong Chan. Even though Wangshan Watchtower didn't have a long history or a rich heritage, they seemed to be in their heyday right now. At this time, Yi Futian was strolling down the street, admiring the scenery of the Donghua heavens. He was enjoying a rare chance to rest and relax since he had nothing to do at the moment. Xiaqing Yuan, Leng Yin, and Leng Shi were walking next to him. Leng Shi visited him to ask for some guidance after they returned to the Leng family that day. Yi Futian was a generous man and offered some thoughts on cultivation. Nevertheless, cultivation was a personal matter and mostly depended on one's own comprehension. "Senior, many people have been gossiping about you along our way," Leng Shi said in a low voice. They could hear people talking about Yi Liunian the Sword Emperor anywhere they went. It was apparent that Yi Liunian had become a legend in the Donghua heavens. Yi Futian remained impassive and didn't respond. Xiaqing Yuan threw him a sideways glance. Leng Yin noticed Yi Futian's inexpressive face and said to Xiaqing Yuan, "My lady, are you two completely unmoved for real?" Even Leng Yin was quite excited about Yi Futian's newly gained popularity in the Donghua heavens. Did Yi Futian remain unaffected by the circumstances because he had cultivated to the Runhuang plain? He is used to it. Xiaqing Yuan felt strange about the way she was addressed, yet she didn't correct him. She looked at Yi Futian's silhouette and answered Leng Yin. "He is used to it," Leng Yin muttered. Xiaqing Yuan nodded and didn't explain further. No one in the original realm hadn't heard Yi Futian's name. Donghua Heavens was just a different place with stronger cultivators and more geniuses. Even so, Yi Futian was still the most dazzling one of all. Besides, Yi Futian was not who he used to be in the past. He had cultivated to the middle-level Runhuang plain and was marching steadfastly to the top. Leng Yin touched Leng Shi's arm. Leng Shi shot a glare back but quickly returned normal and asked Xiaqing Yuan, "My lady, would you like to take on some disciples? I want to cultivate under your instruction and serve you in your daily life, so you won't have to do many things by yourself." Xiaqing Yuan was at a loss for words. It was obvious that they were trying to be close to Yi Futian, through her since Yi Futian turned them down. As cultivators in the Sage Plain, it was not easy for them to ask with thick skin to be her disciples. Nonetheless, Xiaqing Yuan knew that Yi Futian wouldn't recruit any disciple here. He was still trying to secure a place here himself. How could he have the spare time to teach students? He would not consider it unless he could gain a foothold in the divine prefecture like the Millet Emperor. Your seniors are better than me. How could I teach you? Xia Qingyuan replied quietly. I can sense that you're also an extraordinary cultivator who has been hiding your capacities. You are the most beautiful woman with the most elegant bearing that I have ever seen. You and Senior Yi seem like a perfect couple together. Of course you can teach me. Leng Yan was ready to go ahead at any price, including his pride. He genuinely admired Yi Futian and wanted to learn from him. His families and seniors were all very supportive after they heard about his idea. Xia Qingyuan looked at him and suddenly cracked a smile, said, Actually, I'm not his wife. Ugh. Leng Yan blinked quickly in a fluster, but he soon reacted and said, Then you're the future wife. Xia Qingyuan glanced at Yi Futian, who said to Leng Yan, Stop coming up with these ideas. I won't take disciples at this point. A look of disappointment passed over Leng Yan's face, but he still said, Please consider me if you want to recruit disciples in the future. All right. Yi Futian nodded with a smile. What is that place? Yi Futian looked ahead and saw a palace high in the clouds. Many cultivators were gathering at the foot of the palace, including plenty of people in the Runhuang Plain. On top of that, Yi Futian also noticed that more people were coming from far away. A celestial pavilion in the Donghua heavens that operates as a lodge. However, not everyone can enter some of the top celestial pavilions in the Donghua heavens, Leng Yan said. It looks like someone prominent is here, Yi Futian said while walking toward the palace. Many people huddled together under the celestial pavilion, discussing something. Taihua Mountain, Yi Futian muttered to himself after he heard their conversation. He cast his mind back and realized who was coming. The Donghua domain had 7 main continents, 2 islands and 1 mountain. A large number of top forces resided in the 7 main continents. The Donghua heavens had the domain chief's manor, Lingxiao Palace, and Donghua Academy. The Dongxiao continent had the Wangshan Watchtower. The northern White Snow capital had the divine palace of fluttering snow. The Yinyan continent had the Great Yin ancient royal family. The Badlands continent had the desolate god palace. The Luotian continent had the Jiang clan ancient royal family, while the Nanhua continent had the Nanhua clan. All 7 main continents in the Donghua domain were occupied by top forces. Besides that, there were 2 islands and a mountain left. The 2 islands were the Turtle Deity Island of the Divine Ocean continent and the Eastern Deity Island of the Punglai continent. At last, there was Taihua Mountain, which was the principal mountain in the Donghua domain. These were places where all the influential figures cultivated in the Donghua domain. The Taihua Mountain was not controlled by any family or clan, but it was a cultivation temple for a master cultivator referred to as the Taihua Skylord. He was a hermit with unfathomable power. Instead of recruiting disciples and or growing his power outside, he had devoted himself to cultivation. Other than Taihua Skylord, another person in the Taihua Mountain was also well known. Allegedly, Taihua Skylord's daughter goddess Taihua was extremely talented and stunning. Her unparalleled beauty took the breath away of everyone who had met her. Some people even called her the finest goddess of the Donghua domain. Nevertheless, not many people had met goddess Taihua, because the Taihua Mountain was secluded, while no one dared to disturb them rashly. Even so, her reputation grew, and rumors about her spread. Taihua Skylord and goddess Taihua are here as well. Leng Shi and Leng Yan were both astounded. It looks like the chief may have sent someone to invite them. Yi Futian remembered that Taihua Skylord didn't even show up when Emperor. She was facing the divine tribulation of the Great Path. So it might have been the chief who invited them this time. Other people in front of them were also chatting about how the chief had summoned all the best cultivators in the Donghua domain. He was probably the only one who had such power. Is goddess Taihua really as beautiful as the rumors claim? Leng Shi asked. A cultivator on a high plane can absorb the essence of the world and become more beautiful. That's why there are many gorgeous women among the cultivators. Goddess Taihua must be phenomenal, but I doubt anyone in this world is truly unmatched, Yi Futian said with a smile. Yes, my lady. Goddess Xia is also incredibly beautiful, said Leng Shi. Yi Futian was stunned for a moment upon hearing Leng Shi's words. Then he cracked a smile. Leng Shi probably misunderstood the meaning of his casual comment. After all, he had seen so many gorgeous women, including Princess Donghuang. Most women could never have her majestic bearing. But Goddess Taihua must be very attractive. Besides, she cultivates the divine melody. It's impossible to say how many people are dying to meet her. It seems like they finally have a chance now, Leng Shi said in a quiet voice. At this point, a team of cultivators walked to the celestial pavilion and said, "We are entrusted by the chief to invite the Sky Lord and the goddess to rest in the manor." "That's not necessary. We're fine here. Please thank the chief for me. I won't go over to bother him," Taihua Skylord replied. He apparently didn't want to go to stay in the domain chief's manor. Maybe he was used to some peace and quiet. "All right, we will go back to relay the message then," one person said. "There is another matter. We can host the Donghua banquet now that the Skylord is here. We shall be delighted to have your presence at the domain chief's manor in 3 days." "I will go on time for sure," Taihua Skylord replied. The crowd was simmering with excitement. The Donghua banquet was finally coming in 3 days. It was surprising how pressing it was. It seems that they had been waiting for Taihua Skylord before. The domain chief's manor must be tracking the movements of cultivators everywhere. They would host the Donghua banquet as long as all the top cultivators had arrived. Since other forces had turned up one after another, they could set the time now that Taihua Skylord was here as well. Yi Futian looked in that direction. It was happening in 3 days. So the domain chief's manor would inform the entire Donghua heavens within a day. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2025. The Arrival. Chapter 2025. The Arrival. The domain chief's manor ordered Donghua heavens to host the Donghua banquet. Although everyone had known that this day would be here sooner rather than later, it still caused quite a sensation in the Donghua heavens when the news came out. This time, they would have the opportunity to see the top figures from every corner of the Donghua domain. These days, any one of these men was a figure of high caliber and was difficult to catch a glimpse of. However, at the Donghua banquet, there may be a chance to see all of them at such a grand occasion. Last time at Turtle Deity Island in Divine Ocean Continent, many top figures were also gathered there. But not everyone could traverse across many continents to get there. This time, the Donghua banquet was to be held in the Donghua heavens, which only magnified its importance. The last time such a grand occasion took place was 50 years ago, and people were more than just a little excited by it. In addition to being able to meet those major figures, they would have the opportunity to meet many famous peak-level Renhuang, as well as the 4 most outstanding characters. The enchanting existence of those younger genius talents who possessed the perfect great path. They were descendants of clans, the princes and princesses of the ancient royal families, and goddesses of the snow capital. Although they hadn't seen those characters, many rumors about them had already circulated in the Donghua heavens, such as the rumored Ning Hua, the number 1 figure in Donghua domain, and the 4 leading figures, Desolation, Jiang Yueli Zong Chan, as well as the Sword Emperor Liunian, who had risen to fame recently, and Goddess Taihua, who had just entered Donghua heavens. After the news came out, the people of the Donghua heavens departed to gather around the central region, prepared to go to the domain chief's manor to observe the ceremony. This time, it was a feast for the entire Donghua domain. 3 days went by quickly in a blink of an eye. The day of the banquet had finally arrived. In the early morning hours, the Lung family was extremely busy. The clan chief of the Lung family got up early, preparing to take a group of people to observe the ceremony. In the courtyard, Yi Futian and the others were together. "Didn't the Millet Emperor come?" Yi Futian asked Li Changsheng. "The master should be going there directly," Li Changsheng responded with a smile. "The master's whereabouts are unpredictable, and he does not necessarily use the grand teleportation matrix. Perhaps he wanted to take a walk on the road, and even that won't take him too long." Yi Futian nodded. These major figures were different from them, so it wouldn't take much to cross the continent. The domain chief's manor itself announced the Donghua banquet. It seems that they will be selecting qualified candidates at the banquet to cultivate at the domain chief's manor. However, with your reputation and strength, there should be no question about your qualifications. Just that fight at Donghua Academy alone qualifies you to join them, even if you don't participate in the selection process, Li Changxing said with a smile. The selection by the domain chief's manor was also a process to choose powerful cultivators. Yi Futian was so outstanding that there was no way that the domain chief's manor would refuse his entry. Yi Futian nodded slightly. If there were a selection, he would abide by the rules and compete with other potential candidates. Is everyone ready? At this moment, the head of the Lung family walked toward this side. He was also taking the cultivators from the main branch of the Lung family to observe the ceremony. Yes, we can go now, Li Changxing responded. Good, then we are leaving. Now, there are probably countless people who have already gathered at the domain chief's manor. The head of the Lung family remarked with a smile, and everyone nodded. The group then stepped into the void and headed directly in the direction of their destination. At the moment above Donghua heavens, millions of cultivators were in the air, all heading in the same direction. The sight was magnificent, and such a grand occasion made Yi Futian realize that there were too many cultivators on the main continent of the 18 regions in the Divine Prefecture. At the higher level of the cultivation world, the sight to be seen was also grander. The domain chief's manor in Divine Prefecture was already the closest to the peak. Except for the Imperial Palace, it could probably be regarded as the top location in Divine Prefecture. The Donghua domain chief's manor was also the earliest place to be referred to as the Donghua Heavens. It wasn't until later that the entire Donghua continent was named Donghua Heavens. But long before that, the domain chief's manor itself was Donghua Heavens. The domain chief's manor was called Donghua Heavens because originally, it had been a heavenly palace. The domain chief's manor was different from a familial principality, and it was also a most excellent holy land for cultivation. It was vast and endless, its heavenly palace surrounded by a divine aura, like a mythological land. At this time, the land under the domain chief's manor was filled with many cultivators standing outside. Above the firmament, a bright glow fell from the 9 heavens, and the clouds suddenly parted. The mist above the manor dissipated, and the view above the 9 heavens could be seen vaguely. Yonder, everyone saw an extremely magnificent divine temple of the 9 heavens, as if it was moved here, to sit on top of the 9 heavens. Donghua Palace, everyone exclaimed. The Donghua Palace at the domain chief's manor was the place where the chief conducted his business. Now it appeared just like that in their view. The divine temple hidden in the clouds and mist was a divine palace, but it had revealed itself to the world at this moment. In Donghua Palace, stone pillars reached into the sky, carved with dragons and phoenixes, and thrones in different positions. They obviously were reserved for the most important figures of the Donghua domain. Behind Donghua Palace, there seemed to be a divine waterfall hanging down from 9 heavens. Such a magnificent sight could only exist in the imagination, but right now, it was a reality witnessed by all. Behind the 9 heavens divine waterfall, the divine mountain could be seen vaguely, but the view was a little blurry. It should be the landscape that was part of the domain chief's manor, but unfortunately, they could not see it. Only those who entered the domain chief's manor to cultivate could see the view inside. At this moment from Donghua Palace above the 9 heavens, there was a massive staircase spreading down, which was spectacular. The lower part of the Donghua Palace was divided into layers of heaven, and each layer had prepared many seats. The higher up, the fewer seats. Obviously, there were not many people who could get to the top. At this time, from above the stairs, countless goddess-like figures walked down. Their clothes fluttered as they drifted down, and stood on both sides of the stairs. Someone drifted down the layers of heaven to the sky below the domain chief's manor, to welcome the cultivators, who came to participate in the banquet. In front of Donghua Palace, several guardians appeared with apparent powerful cultivation. Their eyes penetrated the boundless void, looking directly at the space below the domain chief's manor, and said loudly, "Today, the chief is hosting Donghua banquet, and everyone is allowed to watch the ceremony from below. The chief will invite the top figures of Donghua domain inside the palace, while the 9 heavens below will receive renhuang from all over the world. The areas are divided by realms of cultivation. Although there are many seats in the 9 heavens, there are too many cultivators here at this time, from all parts of the Donghua domain. Please forgive us in advance for any mishaps." Countless cultivators below nodded their heads. They could understand the fact that there were a lot of renhuang who came this time. At the very least, many renhuang of Donghua heavens would be here to observe the ceremony. For those layers of heavens to accommodate these renhuang was not an easy task, let alone other cultivators present. People in the renhuang realm, from this moment on, may come up the stairs on their own, and go to the area where they are to observe the ceremony. Suddenly many began moving forward. All were of the renhuang realm. They followed the stairs up towards different areas. Renhuang in the 9th realm, in the area of the 9 heavens, which was closest to Donghua Palace, could see those upcoming influential figures more clearly. At this moment in the distance a group of cultivators came by air, in a mighty formation. Their temperaments were extraordinary, and all of them clad in gorgeous robes. When they appeared, someone immediately stepped forward to greet them. "The people from Lingxiao Palace are here," many made the observation. The top figures who arrived here first were from Lingxiao Palace, a principality of the Donghua heavens. The cultivators from Lingxiao Palace came to attend the banquet and to observe the ceremony. An elder said to the man who came to meet them in the air, "Everyone please." The person who greeted them said politely, and took them to a platform just below the Donghua Palace. This area was divided into different sections, and the banquet was set up. The palace above the 9 heavens area was reserved for cultivators from major forces. Even the likes of them could not follow overlords and palace lords into Donghua Palace. They could only stay in the area below the hall. At this time, another group of cultivators was visible in the distance. It was a group of goddesses. The goddesses from the snow capital of northern White Continent are here. The goddesses of the fluttering snow palace are as rumored. Their temperament is cold as snow. Perhaps it is due to their cultivation, but they were all so outstandingly beautiful. The crowd talked amongst themselves, and their eyes showed great appreciation. "Fluttering Snow Palace is here to attend the banquet," said Jiang Yueli. They were welcomed and seated in the same area as the cultivators from Lingxiao Palace, who then got up and bowed to them as a polite greeting. After the two parties exchanged formalities, they took their seats once again. After that, the cultivators of Donghua Academy arrived, causing a sensation in an instant. Donghua Academy was the holy land of cultivation for Donghua heavens. Many of the powerful cultivators within the academy were admired by everyone in the Donghua heavens. Donghua Academy had given birth to many extraordinary individuals. Ninghua did not come with Donghua Academy. Someone noticed that the vice chief of the Donghua domain was not there. The vice chief should already be at the domain chief's manor. "He will probably appear in Donghua Palace with the chief," someone whispered, and many around him nodded in agreement. With Ninghua's status and reputation, it was completely understandable for him to appear at Donghua Palace. After that, various forces from the Nanhua clan, the ancient royal family of Yan, and the ancient royal family of Jiang arrived in succession. Their appearances were noticed by everyone there. Finally, Yi Futian and the cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower were here too. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. After Yi Futian and the others arrived, Li Changxing put his hands together and greeted the many cultivators who were on the stairs. Cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower have come to take part in the banquet and observe the ceremony. After Yi Futian and the others arrived, Li Changxing put his hands together and greeted the many cultivators who were on the stairs. Cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower have come to take part in the banquet and observe the ceremony. Wangshan Watchtower. Many people looked at them, and their eyes quickly fell on Zhong Chan and Yi Futian, who were standing beside Li Changsheng. That's Zhong Chan, someone whispered. The white-haired young man on the left is probably the Sword Emperor Lian Yin. Just look at him. He looks so dapper and charming, someone exclaimed. And some female cultivators couldn't help but give another look at Yi Futian. The rumors were true. Not only was he unparalleled in strength and talent, but his appearance and temperament were also undeniably outstanding. They couldn't help but wonder if he had chosen a path companion already. Such was the world of cultivation. If one's cultivation was less than desirable along with low talent, then one's appearance meant absolutely nothing. However, if one was a peerless figure with extraordinary looks, there was no way that this person would not be noticed and admired. Take Taihua Goddess for example. Although she had rarely been seen, her reputation preceded her. This was because in addition to her extraordinary talent and strength, they were also enhanced by her beauty. It is rumored that everything that happened in Donghua Academy was true. They said that Sword Emperor Liuanian might be even greater than Jiang Yueli and the others, and that the rank of his divine wheel of the Great Path has a real chance to be the same as Ning Hua's. Someone whispered. Although this information was reported from Donghua Academy and had been proven as absolutely true with no falsehood, some people were still surprised by what they heard. After all, those people's reputation was great in Donghua domain, and Ning Hua himself was even known as its #1 genius talent. In the eyes of many people in the Donghua heavens, he would be the #1 cultivator in the Donghua domain, and its future chief. None would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him, not even these four most influential figures. He was the first among equals, and the other three would have to line up behind him. Now there were rumors that Yi Futian's divine wheel of the Great Path was comparable to Ning Hua's. Naturally, many were skeptical regarding this claim. Everyone please. Someone from above came to receive them. Li Changsheng and the others followed the person as they moved upwards. Clan Lord Lung took one look at the cultivators in the 9 heavens and immediately grasped the situation. He said, "Go up according to your own realm. Those below the Renhuang realm, please observe the ceremony from below." Lung Yin and Lung Shi both looked disappointed. Were they only allowed to watch from below? Even their aunt Lung Qinghan had gone up to be with the cultivators of Donghua Academy. However, their cultivation was still weak, so this was the best they could do. "Elder, may we bring a few companions with us?" Yi Futian asked the cultivator, who came to meet them. The other gave him a serious look, made some estimation as to Yi Futian's identity, and nodded. Of course. It was not unusual for cultivators from various might forces to bring some people up with them. "Thank you." Yi Futian thanked him, then said to Lung Yen and Lung Shi, "You two come along too." The two smiled and nodded, revealing a look of excitement. They were now right under Donghua Palace, which was higher than the place where even the clan lord would be. Clan Lord Lung gave them a small smile. These two were pretty lucky. The group continued upward, along with the two youngsters. Many wished they had also known some powerful figures themselves. Thus, it was useless for them to stand underneath. Although they could still see the Donghua Palace from the highest point in the sky, it was still not enough. The distance was so far that it would be considered just an observation of the ceremony, without a real sense of participation. If they could stand above, it would feel more like they were part of the Donghua banquet. Yi Futian and his party came to an area below the Donghua Palace. This area was very spacious and could easily accommodate 1,000 people. People from all principalities had seated in different locations, and most of the principalities in the Donghua domain had already arrived. This demonstrated the strong appeal that the chief had over the domain, and all the top figures had to respect the Donghua banquet. Seeing Yi Futian's arrival, Ling He looked at him with great interest and said, "Brother Yi is here." Yi Futian was a little surprised at the audacity of Ling He. He glanced at him, and saw Ling He squinting at him with a smile, shaking the wine glass in his hand. The look in his eyes made Yi Futian felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if he was being stalked. He understood very well that Ling He had no good intentions. Emperor Yi. On the other side, Qin Qing and other goddesses of fluttering snow palace nodded to Yi Futian very amicably. "We meet the goddesses again." Yi Futian smiled and acknowledged them in return. Their exchange surprised many around them. Judging from several of the goddesses' attitudes toward Yi Futian, they seemed to be even friendlier to him than to Zhong Chan or Li Changsheng. "Brother Yi," someone on the other side called out, and Yi Futian looked at the man and smiled. "Brother Jiang." The person calling out to him was Jiang Jiuming from the ancient royal family of Jiang in Luotian continent. "I heard that Brother Yi had gained fame during a battle in Donghua Academy, but unfortunately, I missed it and was not fortunate to watch Brother Yi fight," Jiang Jiuming said with a smile. "They didn't go to Donghua Academy last time. I was lucky, that's all," Yi Futian replied modestly. Victory by strength, there was no luck to speak of. At Donghua Academy, Kong Xiao, who was defeated by Yi Futian once, had also arrived. He said bluntly, "There was no luck in that battle." Jiang Jiuming smiled when he heard Kong Xiao's comment, and couldn't continue to say anything otherwise. After all, he had to take the cultivators from Donghua Academy into consideration, and he didn't really know what their attitudes were from that battle. Emperor Kong's combat power is extraordinary. If he was an expert at some method, perhaps the person who lost would have been me, Yi Futian smiled. "You are an expert at many kinds of great path, and your divine wheels were extraordinary. I had no hope of winning. If you were to have them examined in front of the divine mirror of heavenly wheels, your divine wheels would probably surpass the 5th rank." Kong Xiao continued, elicited curiosity from all who attended the banquet as they directed their attention toward Yi Futian. Having surpassed the 5th order, wouldn't that mean the 6th order? That was the rank of the divine wheel of the great path possessed by Ning Hua, the first genius talent in the Donghua domain. Kong Xiao believed that Yi Futian's divine wheel of the great path would not rank below Ning Hua's. Further, Kong Xiao and Ning Hua both cultivated at Donghua Academy, so they should have been in close contact. Kong Xiao's assessment was very convincing. Ling He lowered his head slightly when he heard what Kong Xiao said, but a coldness flashed across his eyes. At this moment, everyone felt a supreme pressure covering the boundless space. From within the domain chief's manor, an extraordinary aura descended and radiated out, covering endless regions. A voice said, "Honored guests have arrived. Please enter." As the voice trailed off, the crowd saw a brilliant golden light sprinkled down upon Donghua Palace as a group appeared there. It was the domain chief of Donghua, and his wife was in the main seats of Donghua Palace. Next to them, there was a young man with an extraordinary temperament whose eyes contained divine light. This was the #1 genius talent of Donghua domain, Ning Hua, the proud son of Donghua heavens. Below, countless people were extremely excited to see the appearance of the chief and his wife, as well as Ning Hua. In the Donghua heavens, they would normally have no chance to see the chief. Even Ning Hua was hardly seen by anyone. When the chief appeared, there was divine light shining in different directions above the sky. In one direction, the dark light enveloped a corner of the sky, then landed in Donghua Palace, revealing a domineering figure who stood there. It was Desolation God from the Desolate God Palace. In another direction, there seemed to be drifting snow flying, accompanied by a chill. A most beautiful woman appeared before them, and all the goddesses of the fluttering snow palace stood up when they saw her. Immediately, everyone knew who she was. The sword goddess of fluttering snow palace had arrived, the premier swordswoman in the Donghua domain. At the same time, rays of divine lights descended, and in different positions within Donghua Palace, voices were heard one after another. It was as if they were all coming out of thin air. These were people whose cultivation was of considerable might. They were already inside the Donghua heavens. Though they were still far away, they could traverse great distance within a turning of their minds. With each top figure's arrival, the crowd beneath the domain chief's manor was becoming more boisterous. The person wearing the golden dragon robe is Emperor Yan from the ancient royal family of Yan, and the man in blue is the clan leader of Nanhua clan. Look, the college chief of Donghua Academy has also arrived. As they looked at those distinguished figures going into the banquet hall, they identified who was whom. For most people, This was the first time that they had seen these top figures. At this time, an old man in white had arrived. Although he was quite advanced in age, he still appeared elegant and dapper, quite pleasing to the eyes. It was a temperament few could match. Next to him, there was an extremely beautiful woman, like the Futian goddess, whose beauty eclipsed all other earthly beauties. For a moment, she attracted everyone's attention. Even the Run Huang of the 9 heavens were distracted because of her. Taihua Skylord had arrived. Such a prestigious reputation was well-deserved. The visage of the Taihua goddess was truly unparalleled. Even the goddesses from Fluttering Snow Palace, who were already extremely beautiful themselves, still couldn't help but secretly praise her peerless beauty when they saw Taihua goddess. Skylord is here too, someone in Donghua Palace observed. Taihua Skylord was a cultivator who had been in semi-retreat and rarely showed himself. He didn't even visit Turtle Deity Island last time. We are just waiting on Emperor Shi and the others, the chief smiled and said. When his voice trailed off, a divine light descended, and 2 figures appeared at the same time. It was Emperor Shi and Thunder Punishing Skylord. Their arrival brought a smile upon the chief's face, and he said, Emperor Shi and the Thunder Punishing Skylord have arrived, and the attendees of this Donghua banquet are now all here. The people below thought of the same thing. There were countless people on the continent that was the Donghua domain, but there were only a few who were truly mighty. Every one of these figures was high above the clouds, difficult to be seen by ordinary cultivators. But now they were gathered together in one place to attend Donghua banquet, appeared in the domain chief's manner. Apart from the chief, who could command such a grand gathering. Therefore, their attendance at the Donghua banquet was considered a most satisfying outcome. Yi Futian also raised his head to look at Donghua Palace above. The figures that appeared there were those who stood at the peak of the Donghua domain. They alone could represent the strength of the entire Donghua domain. In the 18 regions of Divine Prefecture, just Donghua domain alone was comparable to the entire original realm. Moreover, these were only the known cultivators in the academy. On their last visit, they had seen a lot of hermits inside Donghua Academy. In the entire land of Divine Prefecture, there must be some hermits who had been cultivating for many years. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2027. Let the feast begin. Chapter 2027. Let the feast begin at the domain chief's manor. It was a scene of total prosperity. It was the most prosperous the Donghua domain had been in 50 years. All the major figures of the Donghua domain were here, with many emperors in attendance. Those whose cultivation was lower than the Runhuang realm could only observe the ceremony from below. The chief looked at the Donghua Palace cultivators and said, Everyone, please take a seat wherever you please. Everyone nodded as they found a seat and sat down. The seats in the Donghua Palace were not distinguished by rank. Otherwise, it would be difficult to arrange. Ninghua, go down and take care of our guests, the chief said to Ninghua, who was behind him. You go as well, Taihua Skylord said to Taihua Goddess, who was next to him. With the vice chief mingling with all the top figures, it would be inappropriate for his daughter, the Taihua Goddess, to stay here. Even if the others said nothing, it was better to follow the protocols. Ninghua nodded as he walked down next to Taihua Goddess and said, Goddess, please. Thank you. Taihua Goddess nodded and followed Ninghua. They walked to a platform under the stairs outside of Donghua Palace, where Yi Futian and the others were seated. At this moment, everyone's eyes focused on Ninghua and Taihua Goddess, looking at these 2 peerless figures. Both of them were extremely well known in the Donghua domain, especially Ninghua. Although not many people had seen him before, his name was known throughout the domain. Likewise, Taihua Goddess enjoyed fame by reputation. Now that everyone saw the 2 standing together, they saw that they were a match made in heaven. If they could become path companions, it would be a great story for posterity. Goddess, please take a seat, Ninghua said as Taihua Goddess found a seat to sit down. Unlike the attendees, she was by herself. After all, Taihua Mountain was not a principality, but just a place where her father happened to conduct his cultivation. In a way, it was similar to Turtle Deity Island as a place where Emperor Shi chose to cultivate. This time, her father brought her along for the occasion. Ninghua walked to the area where the cultivators of Donghua Academy were and sat down. He did not call attention to his own status by sitting in the high seat by himself. This was a detail that did not go unnoticed. Obviously, even in the domain chief's manner, Ninghua still regarded himself as a disciple of the academy rather than the vice chief. This was something that only increased approval from those in the academy. It is a pleasure every time I see the vice chief, who might be more accomplished than his father in the future. The palace lord of Lingxiao Palace commented with a smile. The chief might not be so pleased if it were any other else, but it was high praise for his son to be more accomplished than him. I do have such expectations, but it all depends on him. The chief smiled and said, enough about him. Today is the first time everyone in the Donghua domain had the good fortune to meet the treasured pearl of Taihua Skylord. I myself am quite amazed. I am envious of Taihua Skylord for having such a wonderful daughter. Chief is most generous. Several people in Donghua Palace laughed. It was natural for cultivators to wish for their descendants to inherit their craft. Since the great emperor unified the divine prefecture, there have been more and more outstanding cultivators over the years. In another 100 years, maybe these youngsters will be able to replace us, the chief said while looking at those seated below the stairs. Many people nodded in agreement. Emperor, she said, indeed, in the hundreds of years after the unification of divine prefecture, there have been many changes. In the future, more cultivators will inevitably spring up, and old guys like us will have to retire. But I am looking forward to the next era of prosperity. Everyone looked at the group below, and saw that the eyes of thunder-punishing Skylord fell on Yi Futian, as he nodded at him with a smile. When Yi Futian saw thunder-punishing Skylord nodded to him, he felt compelled to get up. He bowed slightly to him. A Skylord who was showed such friendliness deserved to be treated according to regular etiquette. Last time at Turtle Deity Island, it was also thunder-punishing Skylord who told him what Ling he had done. At the edge of the cliff, thunder-punishing Skylord showed him that he had a good impression of Yi Futian. Such a character would never be motivated by anything other than pure appreciation. Yi Futian understood this very well. Emperor Shi's gaze also stayed on Yi Futian for a moment before moving away. Obviously, he remembered Yi Futian. In the Battle of Turtle Deity Island, Yi Futian had demonstrated his powerful strength. Around the 9 heavens, countless people focused their attentions on him. Emperor Shi, who had survived the first major divine tribulation. There were rumors that his current strength may be comparable to that of the chief, and that he was one of the most powerful people in the Donghua domain today. It was even possible that he might be the stronger of the two between him and the chief. It was rumored that when he experienced the divine tribulation, the divine ocean continent was swept through by the divine tribulation, causing the waves to be swallowed back, so that even the entire continent itself was shaken up and affected by it. However, at this moment, even though his temperament was outstanding, he appeared very easygoing and made those around him feel at ease. Unfortunately, Emperor Shi was not accepting disciples right now, only if they could be accepted under his tutelage. Many Renhuang had the same thought. Anyone who could become a disciple of Emperor Shi would probably become a powerful figure in the Donghua domain. At this time, the chief looked down below at the 9 heavens and the cultivators beneath the domain chief's manor. He smiled and said, "Today we host Donghua banquet at the domain chief's manor, and we are so glad that everyone can attend and observe the ceremony. 50 years have passed since the festivities last time in the Donghua domain. Over the years, the cultivation world of the Donghua domain has become stronger. So I want to take this opportunity to get together with my old friends, have a drink, and catch up. Then, I want to see the state of cultivation in the Donghua domain, and see how many excellent characters have come into existence. Lastly, there is the matter concerning the domain chief's manor. Over the years, quite a few cultivators have left the manor, so there is a need to recruit another group of people to enter the manor for cultivation. This is a great opportunity for selecting a group of Runhuang to enter the domain chief's manor. In the 9 heavens, many cultivators in Runhuang realm were thoughtful when they heard what the chief had to say. They had guessed that the domain chief's manor would be accepting disciples, and was the purpose for so many Runhuang cultivators being at the banquet. Strictly speaking, the domain chief's manor was considered a force in and of itself, and a top-notch force at that, as it was backed by the great emperor. Anyone who could enter the domain chief's manor to cultivate would experience a completely different world. Of course, they would also be sent on some missions. More than 300 years have passed since the great emperor unified the divine prefecture. Over the past 300 years, the great emperor has brought a renaissance of martial arts and command the world's cultivators to preach in divine prefecture. So everyone has the opportunity to cultivate. The divine prefecture has emerged from an era of chaos, and order has been restored. As it is getting stronger, many superior cultivators emerged, such as Emperor Shi, who had crossed the divine tribulations, or like thunder-punishing Skylord, who broke through the realm and proved the way. Perhaps because of the time factor, there are still very few top figures existing amongst us. 300 years is not a short period of time, but neither is it a long one to us cultivators. Therefore, I hope that in the future, the divine prefecture will be able to produce more powerful cultivators and give birth to extraordinary individuals with the emergence of more peak forces, such as the ancient royal families. The chief continued to speak. Although his voice was not loud, it had spread across the boundless space, so that everyone in the domain chief's manor could hear him clearly. The chief of domain chief's manor was appointed by the great emperor himself, whose purpose was to execute the will of the great emperor. The great emperor had the desire to nurture martial arts to its fullest potential, and it was the duty of the chief to work hard and make it a reality. Of course, all these words were just formality. It was expected for the chief, as the host of the Donghua banquet, to clarify his position at a grand gathering like this. After all, whatever happened here could easily be known by the imperial palace. Here, I would like to drink to our cultivators of Donghua domain. At this moment, the chief raised his glass and drank up. Countless cultivators cheered and shook the 9 heavens. The chief waved his hand, and everyone quieted down again. He continued, "All of you probably already know those around me, so I will forego the introduction, as they are all top cultivators from Donghua domain. If you have the opportunity in the future, you may seek them for spiritual guidance and cultivation. Perhaps this banquet will provide such an opportunity." With that said, the chief raised his cup to the powerful figures in Donghua Palace and said, "A toast to you all." Everyone raised their cups and said in unison, "Chief is too generous." With that, they drank the wine in their cups. Although some of you are not accepting disciples, the banquet has attracted every top figure in the Donghua domain. If someone catches your eyes, why not accept them? Perhaps not as disciples, but to cultivate under your tutelage. Domain chief's manor will not be competing with you, the chief said with a smile. His words tempted many Runhuang. This time, not only did they have the opportunity to enter the domain chief's manor, but they may even have the opportunity to follow these powerful people in cultivation? Sure, if I have cultivators that I like, I will definitely invite them to cultivate in Lingxiao Palace, as long as they are not vying to enter the domain chief's manor. The lord of Lingxiao Palace said with a smile. Lingxiao Palace and the domain chief's manor were both located in the Donghua heavens. And judging from his demeanor and speech, the palace lord of Lingxiao Palace had a good rapport with the domain chief's manor and favored the chief. Being able to follow all of you in cultivation is much better than coming to the domain chief's manor, the chief said with a smile. If there are suitable candidates, the fluttering snow palace would be willing to recruit them as well. The sword goddess also joined in. However, it would require an extremely excellent candidate to meet her high standards and requirements. After that, many expressed their agreement to such suggestions, which pleased the chief. He said, "Every one of you has heard that this banquet. It is a huge opportunity. Don't miss it. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2028, A Law Battle. Chapter 2028. A law battle. The Renhuangs underneath were slightly startled. The chief's gaze fell upon the group below Donghua Palace's staircase. Then he said, I am sure that most of you will be able to recognize them. Ninghua, the practitioners of Donghua Academy, Goddess Taihua, the goddess of the divine palace of fluttering snow, as well as the best of the younger generation from various factions such as Desolation, Jiangyueli Zongchan. Not to mention you, even I have heard of them. They are very renowned. Many people smiled. The chief was clearly speaking in a joking tone. He seemed very casual, and it helped create a favorable impression of him to many. Indeed, Ninghua, Jiangyueli, everyone had heard these names before. In addition, Goddess Taihua, Sword Emperor Liuyan, Qin Qing, Ling He, along with many others were names that the Renhuangs of Donghua Heavens had heard of. I am sure that many of you are curious about their strengths, and would like to have a spar with them. Here today, I will call the shots for you. Whoever you want to challenge or spar with, choose as you please. They will accept all your requests. Let us old ones see how many genius cultivators in the Donghua domain are yet to show their talents. The best case scenario is to defeat them. Then, the chief continued with a smile. As long as you defeat them, even if they do not take you in, my domain's manner will directly take you in. In addition to that, there will be a prize. How does that sound? Many people smiled. Most were very expectant, and were raring to go. Just as the chief said, any Renhuang in the world of practitioners would drool at a chance to spar with any of these top geniuses. However, such opportunities were incredibly rare. Now these geniuses were all gathered in the same place. They were seated right over there. And these practitioners could pick and choose who they wanted to challenge. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They could even challenge Ninghua. Many were feeling very excited. The chief shifted his gaze towards the group seated underneath and asked, None of you have any objections, right? They nodded. Then, a person from the Donghua Academy replied, The Donghua Banquet is such a big event. To be able to see and meet the celebrities of the Donghua domain. Now that the chief has spoken, we will most definitely do our best. The most authoritative person of the Donghua domain had already spoken. Naturally, as juniors, no one declined. Ninghua sat there like the others. By the time they're done, if you guys want to spar among yourselves, that's fine too. As long as it is not a high plane person intentionally challenging a person of a lower plane, you will not be allowed to decline the request, said the chief with a smile. As he spoke, his gaze scanned across the group of people underneath. Then he said, However, I will say this in advance, these spars should be moderate. Nothing life-threatening is allowed. However, these are law battles after all. Moreover, at your plane levels, sometimes it is indeed hard to control your strength, especially when the battle gets intense. Any oversight could lead to very severe injuries. Furthermore, they have their own tempers. If the strength gap between you is too great, and you made them mad, you cannot blame anyone. You will have to bear the consequences of these law battles yourself. Many of them nodded. Naturally, they already knew this. So many Renhuangs were gathered here today. If everyone had a turn to fight, just how long would it take? Even though it was a grand banquet that was held only once in 50 years, the chief was prepared. While he wanted everyone to express themselves, he did not want any and everyone to actually participate. They should know their own limitations. If one were too weak, they should not waste everyone's time. Well then, let's get started. The chief raised his head and glanced upward. Immediately after, divine light beamed down from the sky. Following that, from the domain chief's manor, a divine item flew out and beams of divine light spread out and descended from the sky, as if it was the Milky Way. It covered the entire area, connecting the 9 heavens together. Rumble! A loud rumble was heard. Then everyone saw the divine item. It was actually a floating law battle platform. It had formed a space of its own. There were 4 doors, and when one walked inside, One would have entered an independent space where one could fully express and utilize one's full strength. Next, it is your turn to express yourselves. We will observe. I will not interfere, said the chief with a smile. He looked at the others of the Donghua Palace and said, smiling, it is rare for us to be able to meet and gather like this. What say we old ones stay here, drink liquor, and watch what these young ones can do? How about it? Sounds good, Emperor Shi answered, laughing. This arrangement was laid back, and it was good as he wanted to see the cultivation level of Donghua domain's younger generation. He had been cultivating at the Turtle Deity Island for a long time, before he finally passed his divine tribulation. Now his mentality had changed a little. Perhaps he would not be able to pass his second divine tribulation in the future. Perhaps he would die in his divine tribulation. So why not be a little more laid back? Come, drink. Chief Ning laughed, raised his cup and said, come, let's guess. Who do you think will be the first to be challenged? My guess is Ning Hua, said the palace lord of Lingxiao Palace. He continued and said, Ning Hua is very well known throughout the Donghua domain. Everyone has heard his name. Even if no one would be able to match him, I still think that he will be the first to be challenged. That is possible, commented the sword goddess while nodding. I actually think that the goddess of the divine palace of fluttering snow has a higher probability of being the first. Who wouldn't want to witness the elegance and talent of the divine palace's goddess? Said the overlord of the Jian clan ancient royal family. Why not goddess Taihua? Asked the sword goddess. She then continued and said, she is the daughter of the Sky Lord. Her beauty is peerless, and she is a master of the divine melody. Why wouldn't anyone want to experience that? Perhaps, answered the Jiang clan overlord. This old one recently heard that the young man from Wangshan Watchtower, called Yi Lionian, has quite a reputation within the Donghua heavens. I am randomly guessing here, but I think it will be him, said Emperor Shi. I did not expect Emperor Shi to also know what had happened in Donghua heavens. Chief Ning chuckled and said, indeed, I also heard Sword Emperor Lionian's name recently at the Domain Chief's manor. I heard that his divine wheel of the Great Path might not inferior to Ning Hua. Donghua Academy is the holy land of cultivation in the Donghua heavens. Yi Lionian also made a name for himself at Donghua Academy. That is why I think that there is a chance that the first person to be challenged will be a disciple of Donghua Academy, said Nanhua clan's clan leader, laughing. At that moment, these top-notch figures did not seem dignified at all. They were guessing playfully in a relaxed manner. They did not seem like prominent figures who stood at the peak of the Donghua domain at all. Underneath, multiple practitioners raised their heads to look at the Donghua Palace high up above. It was a rare sight to behold for them too. This was the closest they ever got to these heavyweights. And perhaps they would never have a chance like this again, to witness these people talking and laughing so casually. At that time, the first Ren Huang had already walked on top of the law battle platform. It was a mid-level Ren Huang. It is a practitioner from the Yin family of the Donghua heavens, Yin Qingfeng. Someone recognized this person. It was a local practitioner, a family of the Donghua heavens, a branch family of the great Yin ancient royal family. The teleportation grand matrix of the Wangshan Watchtower, that connects to the Donghua heavens, is with the Lung family. The great Yin ancient royal family, on the other hand, uses the Yin family. Beside Yi Futian, Sky Sword Lung Quangxing transmitted his voice to Yi Futian, which prompted Yi Futian to look towards the person. Did the great Yin ancient royal family have a branch? Regardless, it would not be weird for a top ancient royal family to have a family member start a branch family on the outside. Yin Qifeng floated above the law battle platform. He gazed above him, towards the area right below the staircase outside the Donghua Palace. His gaze finally fell upon a group of Donghua Academy practitioners. He said, Donghua Heaven's Yin family's Yin Qingfeng. I wish to spar with Donghua Academy's disciple, Lung Qinghan, pleased to meet our acquaintance. Someone guessed right, in that the first one to be challenged would be a disciple of the Donghua Academy. However, no one would have ever been able to guess that Lung Qinghan would be the one. After all, Lung Qinghan's name was not all that well known in Donghua Academy. She was most definitely not the most famous celebrity around. Of course, anyone who could enter the Donghua Academy to cultivate had already proven themselves to be talented. Naturally, their strength could not be questioned. Many from the Lung family had odd expressions on their faces. None of them would have even imagined Lung Qinghan would be challenged first. It was clear that this Yin Qingfeng was intentionally targeting her. Many people in the Donghua Palace also lowered their heads to glance below. Those who understood the situation shifted their gaze toward Emperor Yen. Could it be an extension of the grudge between the great Yin ancient royal family and the Wangshan Watchtower? The grudge began with the great Yin ancient royal family and the Eastern Deity Island. The great Yin family and the Wangshan Watchtower could never get along. Yen Dongyang even brought someone over to provoke the Watchtower in the past, but was humiliated at the hands of Yi Futian. Now a Run Huang of a branch of the great Yin ancient family, the Yin family, was challenging a practitioner from the Lung family. It was inevitable that people would wonder if there was more than meets the eye. However, Lung Qinghan was a practitioner of the Donghua Academy. It would not be easy for Yin Qingfeng to defeat her. Lung Qinghan got up, leaped into the air, and entered the law battle platform. Who do you think will win this battle? Chief Ning asked inside the Donghua Palace. Lung Qinghan is a disciple of Donghua Academy, so her chances of winning are naturally higher, said the divine palace of Fluttering Snow's sword goddess. Many somewhat agreed with her, but Ling Xiao Palace's palace lord said, Yin Qingfeng is also quite famous around Donghua heavens. He is not weak. Moreover, he is from a branch of the great Yin ancient royal family. From what I know, his combat strength is quite high. Even though Lung Qinghan trained in the Donghua Academy, she is now very well known. It is hard to say who will win. Chief Ning smiled. This was the first battle, and the practitioners engaged in the law battle were not famous individuals. As such, the debates were also not intense. Underneath, Yi Futian's gaze also shifted towards the battlefield. The great Yin ancient royal family sent a member of their branch family in the first battle. Were they trying to say something? On the law battle platform, the two fighters stood facing each other. Then, a cold aura emanated from Lung Qinghan's body as she said, Pleased to make your acquaintance. Likewise, Yin Qingfeng replied. Then, a vague but domineering golden divine light radiated from his body. The power of the great path oozed out of his body, as a gigantic divine golden dragon appeared. His body was covered in golden dragon armor, while his arms were covered in extremely sharp dragon scales, as if his body had transformed into a dragon, and it looked immensely dangerous. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2029, Battle of Humiliation. Chapter 2029, Battle of Humiliation. Many people looked down at the law battle platform, where Yi Futian and the others were. They heard the sound of a dragon singing. Song of the Yin Dragon, Yi Futian thought to himself. It was a secret skill of the great Yin ancient royal family. Yi Futian assumed that Yin Qingfeng might have cultivated with the great Yin ancient royal family before, since he knew how to release it. If that was the case, Yin Qingfeng might be targeting them this time. An icy storm formed around Lung Qinghan's body. The knife was like the cold moon, and its silver gleam sent a chill down every audience's spine. However, a real dragon manifested itself above Yin Qingfeng's body and soared through the sky. Countless dragon blades fell with great momentum. Yin Qingfeng himself also charged forward and pressed on Lung Qinghan. The battle broke out in an instant and shook the entire law battle area. The knives gleamed brilliantly and split up space. To everyone's surprise, Lung Qinghan launched the counterattack like a whirlwind. He is a disciple of Donghua Academy indeed. Although Lung Qinghan's blade technique originally comes from the Lung family, it has transformed into something much more powerful. A cultivator from the great Yin ancient royal family said. Yen Hanqing looked at Zhong Chan and the others and said, Lung Quangxing also cultivated at Wangshan Watchtower before. Do you think Lung Qinghan can defeat Yin Qingfeng, who is also from an aristocratic family in the Donghua heavens. Crown Prince Yan, you also acknowledge that the Lung family shares a past with our Wangshan watchtower. Of course, we believe Lung Qinghan will win this time, Li Changxing replied with a smile. Unless, of course, people from the Great Yan don't think Yin Qifeng can gain the upper hand? Yan Hanqing smiled and said, Of course not. I have faith in Yin Qifeng. Why don't we make a bet since we disagree? What kind of bet? Li Changxing asked. If Lung Qinghan loses, Wangshan Watchtower will keep your hands off of the Eastern Deity Island and hand this man over to the Great Yin if he lost. Yan Hanqing looked at Yi Futian and said with a smile. Squinting, Li Changxing glanced at Yan Hanqing and said in a mocking tone, Sorry, but the Great Yin doesn't have anything equal to offer. Yan Hanqing's piercing gaze focused on Li Changxing. Li Changxing was ridiculing the Great Yin ancient royal family for not having anyone comparable to Yi Futian. Yan Dongyang, a member of the Great Yin ancient royal family, had been vanquished before, while Yi Futian astonished everyone at Donghua Academy. Which Ren Huang from the Great Yin ancient royal family could hold a candle to Yi Futian? The Great Yin ancient royal family didn't have anyone in the same class as Yi Futian to make this bet. People watched Yan Hanqing and Li Changxing with great interest. The battle on the law battle platform was directly related to the two forces. Who would have thought that the crown prince of the Great Yin would be tongue-tied? Nowadays, it was almost impossible for the Great Yin to find someone as good as the Sword Emperor Liuyan. Yin Qifeng also cultivated with the Great Yin ancient royal family, right? But it seems that he is losing ground already. Li Changxing glanced at the platform and said, Lung Qinghan cultivated multiple types of power of the Great Path. By combining them brilliantly and utilizing her blade technique, she had the upper hand over Yin Qingfeng. Is that so? Yan Hanqing replied blankly. At this point, the situation on the platform changed abruptly. Yin Qingfeng seemed to have used some secret arts and covered his entire body with an armor made of dragon scales, which grabbed Lung Qinghan's knife. Then his hand turned into a sharp claw and pierced through Lung Qinghan's body. A dazzling streak of light flashed across the sky. The dragon scale armor covering Yin Qingfeng was torn apart, and a bright red will sprang upon it. But Lung Qinghan was also severely injured. She was flung away with a deep gash on her body. The blood stained her clothes. The audience quieted down immediately. Everyone was surprised to see that the first battle was so fierce. Normally, the first sparring session at a grand gathering, where all the top cultivators in the Donghua domain came together, was supposed to be courteous and friendly. The key figures in the Donghua palace also glanced at the platform, but didn't say anything. Chief Ning already stated that he would not get involved. He is quite good for being able to defeat a disciple of the academy. Let's not argue further since he is trained by the Great Yin ancient royal family, Chief Ning commented. Lung Qinghan covered her wound and left the platform. She kept her head down after retreating. The first fight embarrassed Donghua Academy a little. The cultivator from Donghua Academy was defeated by a Ren Huang from the Great Yin. Are you hurt badly? Lung Quangxing asked Lung Qinghan. She shook her head. Yi Futian took out a small porcelain bottle, handed it to her, said, Here are some elixirs. Take them. Thank you, Lung Qinghan nodded. She returned to the academy's side, drank the elixirs, and sat down to regulate her breath and mend her body. People from Donghua Academy were quite upset. They glared at the cultivators from the Great Yin. At this point, Yin Qingfeng also walked off the platform, as if he didn't fight to prove a point or endorse a particular group. Some other Renhuangs stood up and planned to head to the law battle area. But a figure flashed past them. A person with silver hair stood quietly in front of a door outside of the law battle platform. Then he stepped forward and walked in. Many people looked at him with astonishment. Even the top cultivators sitting in the Donghua Palace were stunned by the silver-haired man walking onto the battle platform. It was Yi Futian. Yi Futian only needed to sit tight and wait for someone to challenge him. After all, he was well known for his ability already and had Wangshan Watchtower to back him up. Chief Ning initially thought that some interested cultivators from the top forces might spar with Yi Futian after other law battles were over. However, Yi Futian walked out on his own to join the second fight. What did he want to do? Yi Futian came to the law battle platform silently, his body floating in the air. Under countless people's watch, he gazed at the cultivators from the great Yin ancient royal family, who were sitting outside of the Donghua Palace, and said, "I sparred with the Crown Prince Yin Dongyang before, but didn't fully enjoy myself. Therefore, I'd like to invite Crown Prince Yin to another match to see if we have made any progress. Please." Everyone was staring at Yi Futian. The cultivators from the great Yin ancient royal family narrowed their eyes, and Yin Dongyang's face was frozen. Yi Futian already defeated him at Wangshan Watchtower, so another fight was completely meaningless and unnecessary, unless he took the initiative to challenge Yi Futian. If that was the case, why did Yi Futian do this? Everyone could tell that Yi Futian wanted to crush Yin Dongyang again. He wanted to bring Yin Dongyang to his knees in front of everyone in the Donghua domain. How audacious! Yin Dongyang's expression was grim. The cultivators from the great Yin ancient royal family, who were rejoicing over Yin Qingfeng's victory over Leng Qinghan, also stopped smiling. Yi Futian was deliberately provoking the great Yin ancient royal family. He was retaliating for Leng Qinghan's loss just now. The cultivators from the Leng family were moved by Yi Futian's action. Leng Yin and Leng Shi watched him, their blood boiling. They were both raving mad just now, and they were eager to see the great Yin ancient royal family being humiliated. How interesting! The thunder-punishing Skylord snickered. It was said that revenge was a dish best served cold, but it seemed that Yi Futian didn't bother to wait. Yin Dongyang had no choice but to accept Yi Futian's challenge. After all, Yin Dongyang had no excuse to refuse, as Yi Futian was at a lower level than him. Could he concede? The great Yin ancient royal family would be humiliated. Everyone saw what happened just now. He had no way out. Yin Dongyang was forced to walk to the law battle area. He glared at Yi Futian with sheer malice. Without speaking, he unleashed tremendous might from his body. Along with the sound of the dragon singing, several terrifying dragons appeared in the sky above. The law battle area was dazzling and magnificent at that moment. Many people only realized then that Yin Dongyang, the crown prince of the great Yin ancient royal family, was also an extraordinary cultivator with a perfect divine will. They forgot about how powerful he was in the presence of his silver-haired opponent. Divine light shone brilliantly on the law battle platform. Under everyone's watch, the law battle area was transformed into a starry dimension where millions of stars circling. Then it was into a frightening great path domain. The song of the dragon was still echoing through the area, but countless starry steels rose from the stars, emitted bright Buddhist light, and unleashed the power of the sonic wave. It was the Vajra demon-slaying rhythm. The two types of the power of the sonic wave collided with each other and rippled across the great path. What a formidable great path domain. Everyone's eyes were fixed on them. Kong Xiao from Donghua Academy had a stern face. It was how he had lost before. The great path domain expanded with significant momentum and engulfed the law battle area. It repelled the golden dragons and took control of the area. It seems that the Millet Emperor has secretly recruited him as a disciple, after all, Emperor Yin said coldly. Yi Futian's great path domain obviously evolved from the gate to world suppression. Of course, I'm glad to meet such an exceptional young man. I taught him what I know, but why do I have to recruit him as my disciple? The Millet Emperor replied. Emperor Yin uttered a snort. Countless divine monuments fell from the sky as if the starry dimension was crumbling. Yi Futian pushed a hand forward and shattered everything into pieces. So powerful. The audience was astounded by the scene. Yi Futian's strike dashed against the sky. Yin Dongyang tried his best to defend himself, but his great path disintegrated, and he couldn't withstand the attack at all. Bang! With a loud noise, the palm of the great path came down from the sky and hit Yin Dongyang's body. Yin Dongyang fell on the law battle platform, throwing up blood. He was barely breathing. One strike. The crowd was staggered. A cultivator as powerful as Yin Dongyang couldn't withstand one strike from Yi Futian. Yi Futian exerted his full strength to deliberately humiliate Yin Dongyang. Enraged, the great Yin ancient royal family cultivators stared at Yi Futian, who was standing on the law battle platform. He had pushed them too far. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.